business, biceps, a little BS. Fitness mixed with finance, now you're really gonna see us as we're learning, growing. All your minds we're blowing, earning while we're burning. Shirts are tight, so games are showing. Resolve, evolve, absolve, it's time to make a move. Better check yourself, cause if you're doubting, no, we got the proof. Voices speaking loud, cause we're proud about what we can do. Tickling your ears with CPE, rooted in the truth.
Yeah, and I've only interviewed a few CFOs. Actually, I'm interviewing next month, or next week rather, not next month, next week, the CFO of Aurora Cannabis, which is I believe, the largest publicly traded cannabis company in the world. They trade on the Canadian Stock Exchange. And so I've never spoken to a CFO of a cannabis company that large. So they don't do business in the US, so it's not going to be 280E focused and stuff like that. But just like forecasting for a future that's unpredictable. Forget about at a domestic statewide level. They don't do business here, like I said, but globally, how do you forecast cannabis finance globally for a company of that size? And I hope to have a great conversation with her about that. Her name is Simone King. She'd be a great guest for this show too, if you want to get into cannabis.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the industry. At first, when it was coming out, it was very Wild West. Now it's starting to, and even though it's not, there's no real, I would say, definition. States are still trying to figure this whole thing out. It's still so it still has kind of that who's going to get out there, who's going to be the one that to kind of put their stamp on the state, on the brand, what have you. But it's becoming one of those things where it's not that, like, the whole gateway drug thing keeps coming into my head. It's the way that Brandon describes it. He says, well, you can either smoke it, you can eat it, or you can drink it. But in each way has a different like onboarding process into the body, and it affects everybody differently. But he's saying how, when you're smoking, it hits you immediately. And some people like that, but then again, some people just don't like to smoke anything, right? They don't want that stuff in their lungs. And so you get to the edibles, and the problem with those are that like, it's too easy to eat too many of those, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, and that thing lands on you like a ton of bricks, right? And it hits you all at once. And so he said with the drinks though, you kind of sip the drink over a 15-minute period, and it just kind of slowly enters the bloodstream, and you just kind of feel good. So it's not like you're getting this massive head rush. It's like it's landing on you, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, everything starts slowing down. So it's interesting to see how this industry is going to come out of, actually mature, if other entities allow it to mature the way that it is.
It was a minor league baseball team that introduced the first cannabis seltzer to be sold at a professional sporting event.
Who was that?
It was the Portland Pickles.
Ah, the Pickles. So the Portland Pickles. So we actually were approached by a beverage distributor to say, hey, Savannah Bananas, would you like to put a hemp-based product into your go around? And we looked at it and we said, okay, look, it's alcohol versus the THC drinks, and really they're Delta 9 drinks, because Georgia doesn't really. I don't think it's fully legal in Georgia for that product just yet. But the question is, like, well, what's the difference between the alcohol versus the Delta 9 or the hemp-based products? And what we found is that, well, people know what to expect with alcohol. You're still impaired driving, right? So you still need to have somebody who can drive for you. But do we really want to have that be part of the Bananas experience? And I talking with a chef, and we looked at it and it's like, you know what? No, I don't think we do, because I don't think it's not accepted all the way just yet, and also not a lot of people have tried those products, and it's an outlier, or not an outlier. That's not the word. The word is escaping me, but it's an extra thing that we could do. But it doesn't really elevate the consumer experience, the fan experience. So it's like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and skip it. So we decided no at the Bananas. But the Pickles went ahead and did it, huh?
They did, yeah. And we did a story on it. I got to interview the GM and the CFO. They oversee a couple different minor league teams, but yeah, they said it was pretty successful. I mean, they're much smaller scale than the Bananas, but I kind of agree with you. Like, I don't think that you know, a bananas game would be a great place to try that. Right.
Yeah,
First of all, it might freak you out a bit.
there is I mean, the whole family friendly thing. I can see
No.
it like a normal baseball park. You're going with your buddies. It's very, I would say, baseball's just changed. You know that. You're a lover of baseball, correct?
Sure. Yeah. I love the Yankees.
And hey, you love the Yankees. We're going to be in when you're in your hometown in just a little
Yeah.
bit.
I'm well aware.
Oh my gosh, it's so excited. People are like, "Hey, you got any tickets?" I'm like, "Are you joking?" It's like this thing has been sold out for months.
Oh, yeah.
No, so I look at it from the standpoint of if it's not something that people will talk about at the dinner table just yet, and if there's not like PSAs of, "Hey, don't drink and drive, don't drink, don't smoke and drive," whatever it is. If it's not part of the local lexicon, then maybe it's not time to roll that out. It needs to be accepted, more widely accepted before it would ever become part of like that diaspora. So my thought is that yeah, we could just it's not anything that we're missing out on. So let's just not push that envelope too soon. If people want to do that before they come to the games or after the games, that's fine. I'm no judgment on my part. But should we sell it? Probably not yet, right? Now the margins on it. I mean, you're going to get the same kind of margins like you would for alcohol.
Sure.
You know, people. I don't know. It's just it'll be interesting to see over the next 3 to 5 years if the traction really is really guts in there, and if it does, then how many people are going to rush to it, and the people that were the 49ers getting out there and digging those mines before everybody else arrived, if they're going to really be able to bank on it. So.
You know, for the
Yeah.
guy that's trying to be the Joe Rogan of finance and accounting, you're doing a great job starting the podcast talking about cannabis, huh?
Hey, you know, so one thing I love about Joe, he's liberal, he's socially liberal, right? He's fiscally conservative. He's like every other Republican / conservative Democrat out there who just wants people to leave us alone. Let me have my opinions. I want to hang out with my friends. And I don't need the government coming in and taking meat off my grill, right? So no, I love Rogan. I love the way he straddles it. He doesn't offend a lot of people, but he's not afraid to share his opinion. He's not afraid to call people out on certain things, and I think that's a very brave stance. Now he's also very valued for those opinions, paid extremely well for it, but he's earned it. He's earned the ability to do that, and I think that when people come in and they listen to him in particular, I think you're getting someone who is very good at balancing out the facts versus the opinions, and really bringing context to the conversation, so that when you do hear him and he does say something, it's coming from a place of being informed, as opposed to just some willy-nilly wild hair that said, "Oh, this is how I feel." One of the things that I really appreciate about him is when he always goes to, is it Jamie? Is Jamie his guy? He'll go, "Hey, Jamie, Google that for me. Let's make sure we got that right." And if it's wrong, if he was wrong, he's like, "Oh yeah, definitely got that wrong. Let's fix that record." He doesn't go back and edit the podcast. He says, "No, we're going to fix that right here. I was wrong. Here we go." That takes a lot of guts, man, because a lot of people don't want to, "Oh, I don't want to get the egg on my face." You know what, dude? I have respect for that, because you had a certain fact pattern that you had coming into this conversation. You have learned new information, and you're not afraid to change your opinion now that the circumstances have changed. It's not a weakness; it's a strength of his. So, yeah, I love listening to him. I think he does a great job.
I would agree with everything you just said 5 years ago. But I really think he's, over the past few years, I think Rogan has really declined. I was a big listener of his. I think that he's kind of lost his authenticity.
You think so?
Yes, I find him to be very establishment, very corporate in terms of his questioning. I think his Cash Patel interview set journalism back 25 years.
Really? So you're a journalist. So tell me. So you're Adam Zaki. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, you are, Adam Zaki.
Adam Zaki.
Like wacky like Zaki.
Like a lackey, right? So you are a journalist. You are a journalist with CFO.com. I'm gonna give me a real quick rundown of what you do, why you're so important, and then I want to get back into this journalistic side, because I've not heard this opinion before. Go.
Well, thank you, Tim, for that short introduction there. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think I always say, and I've said this too, I have the greatest job in the world. You know, I get to talk to the smartest people on the planet. I did not go to business school. I am not an accountant. I took accounting 101 and dropped out in community college. I am a journalism major through and through. I love writing. I grew up a bookworm. I've always wanted to do what I do. And I think that, I wouldn't call myself too important, but what I would say,
I think you're very important. You're
there's a
telling
lot,
stories that need to get out there.
well, I agree with you, but there's a lot of journalists that come into this profession with a big ego that I want to win the Pulitzer. I want to have my story on the front page. I don't take it like that. I really, really don't. I think that the way you do this job is by just letting your sources speak for you, and just, people like you tell the great stories. It's just my job to get it out of you. And I
Okay.
think it's the extraction that sets the difference between great reporters and average reporters. There's a lot of people out there that are great writers that can tell a story descriptively and have great grammar and great spelling. That's not really the part of my journalism game that I've sold my strengths on over the years. I've really crafted this as kind of like I love to ask questions. I love to get to the bottom of things. I love to learn. And I think I've been able to combine that in such a way where I'm able to tell stories that decision makers can learn from. Not this is the performance of the S&P 500 over the past 6 months. I'm not interested in that story. I want to tell the story of, how do you be a great CFO and a great father? How do you communicate on an earnings call that things are not going great, but there are ways that we can improve to a team of analysts on the spot? These are the types of things, and those are two very different things, but these are the types of things that aren't always covered in business school and on the job.
They're never covered in business school.
Never. And I wouldn't know, I didn't go, but so I think if I can do that, if I can provide insight to teach people that are much more educated than I am, things that they didn't learn, I think that is how, I can be successful. And that's how I've been successful. And that's what sets us apart here at CFO.com. We tell the news from time to time, but I don't write about, I'm not held to within the confines of the news, which many, 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 many journalists are. I have autonomy in what I'm able to write about, because I believe over the time I've been here, I've been able to develop a good judgment of what makes a good story for CFOs, what CFOs want to learn about. And it's the things like that I'm sure you're well aware of. It's the intangibles. You come from the CFO side and the teacher side, so what's being taught and then what's being executed on the front line. And I think there's a bit of a gap there. And if I could just provide a little bit of color, just provide a little bit of insight into that gap, my job is done.
One of the most amazing things that I've seen is that I've had more people reach out to me, and it has nothing to do with the bananas. It had everything to do with that 5 a.m. what do you do during your day thing. Like, everybody's like, so tell me about your fitness regimen. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. Like, how do you know all this stuff? It's like, oh, I read your stuff on CFO.com. Like, oh my gosh, people really do read it, and they absorb that stuff. What I love about what your is it a periodical publication? It's not a periodical.
So CFO.com was CFO magazine.
Okay.
So CFO magazine was sent across to the top, I would say, Fortune 1000 CFOs across the country for 25 years. Had a newsroom of 50 people, huge company in Boston. Over the years, it was eaten and dissected by private equity. And now we are here, CFO.com. We're a team of 4. We're owned by a giant media conglomerate called Informa.
Okay.
But we are a small team owned by a large company. So yeah, we were a magazine. Now we're CFO.com. I call us a publication.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. The whole periodical things comes when I was in 6th grade, and we used to have actual libraries. So it was. So what I like about your publication, in particular, and really what you bring to the table, is that there are stories out there. I keep telling. I tell students all the time that that you need to be. Forget about numbers. Certainly, numbers are what we're good at. We have finance and accounting is about the numbers, the debits, the credits, the decimal points, the dollar signs, the won, all those different things. But the reality of it is that those are all extremely technical. And if we keep going back to, hey, just show me numbers, show me numbers, show me numbers. If you can't tell me the story as to why that number even matters, then why am I sitting in front of you right now? You need to be able to communicate that story to me in a way that, one, it touches me emotionally, that I can get invested in what you're saying, but 2, that I can also take that information and do something with it, right? I don't just want to read something just for the sake of reading it. I want to read it and say, how does that now change the set of facts that I have right now? And am I going to absorb that and change my mind and change my direction? Or is it something I can just say, okay, well, that was interesting, and just kind of cast it off as just a little bit of white noise? What I've seen you do in CFO.com is, and I've read a lot of your stuff, because I really like the way that you, like you said, you pull those stories out of these individuals. And my thing is that I'm going after these CFOs and I'm trying to tell them, will you guys get back in touch with all the passion that you had before you got just hammered by life and by economics and by mortgages, and like there had to be some reason why you took this path in life. Can you get connected back to that so that the rest of us can see why you're here and that you love your job? Because I have a whole bunch of next generation accountants and finance people that are looking at you going, I want nothing to do with that dude. I want nothing to do with that lady. They look stressed. They look overworked. They're beaten down. No, that's not the image that I want to portray at this level of my career. I want to make sure I can look around and go, like, and people go like, that dude's a CFO? That dude's a CPA? And that's when you know that you've arrived. I could do numbers all day long. I'll do it in my sleep. But can you and I engage in a conversation about something that doesn't have to do with numbers, and still, like, there's a person inside there? 100%. So that's why I love what you bring to the table.
You know, that mindset is it's interesting because you can do that because you have this background of being a CPA and you can speak the accounting language. More and more, I interview CFOs who have no accounting background. Some of them have no finance background.
Yeah.
And so when people step into these roles and want to do what you do, but cannot speak the language and rely on the strength of like a great controller, I think that really hurts credibility. And I think it's a big challenge to be like a contemporary CFO without that type of background. And going back to what you said about, you know, learning the fundamentals, I'd love to hear, I wish I remembered the kid's name. And our friends Blake and David over on the accounting.
Yeah, they're great. I love those guys. Yeah.
They had a student on who came on and said, this is not a direct quote, but he said, basically, I don't want to learn credits and debits. I want to learn Gusto. You know, teach me how to use software. I don't want to learn this stuff. And I said to them on this podcast, you know, that's kind of a tough way to look at this because you need to know the fundamentals. I think I compared it to like learning trigonometry, like learning things like that. It just teaches you thought patterns, teaches you how to think. And so if you don't understand things like credits and debits, as you step into the role, you could be a genius at software. But if you don't understand the fundamentals, and I'm sure you see this, a lot of accounting students go, why do I need to learn this if software is going to do this?
I had this experience in public accounting when I was about 2 years in, and I'm going to pull this right back to what we're talking about. Where it was late on a Friday night, and I'm kind of walking around, just kind of stretching. I know it's busy season. The sun's going down over Tampa Bay. You can see it kind of like it's hitting off the corporate. It's a nice corporate boardroom table. It's like, oh my gosh! I turned the corner, can't see anything, and there's a senior manager that's sitting there in one of the cubes, because senior managers used to actually work in cubes. And so I was like, hey man, what are you doing here? It's like 5:30 on a Friday, right? He goes, oh, you know, I just got to finish up some stuff, and it's like, well, you know, why don't you have your manager or your seniors do it? I didn't work for him, so I'm not going to do his work. I don't know his client, so. But he's like, oh, you know, every once in a while, I had to get my hands dirty, get back into the debt. It's like, you know, good for you. And he goes, so we just started talking, and you know, sun's going down, Friday night. We're both at the office, and he's got probably 7 years of experience more than me, and he knows that I don't know anything that's going on. And he said, hey Tim, let me tell you something. And I was like, okay, well, this is wisdom time, right? You can feel like the mood in the room has changed. He's about to settle into like the Yoda figure, and I'm gonna start doing my one-handed, working on one hand like Luke Skywalker, right? So he says, you know, in public accounting, he said, if you kind of look around, you can see that there's, you know, the good people that are here. They end up leaving. They end up taking jobs with the clients. Like this is before Sarbanes-Oxley made that a little bit more difficult to make the jump to your clients. But he said the good ones leave. And he said the bad ones get fired. And I said, well, wait a second, but what does that mean about you? Like, he goes, well, it's actually it's a war of attrition. It's like, and I said, wait a second, but that doesn't make sense. That means that if all the good ones are leaving for the clients for, better pay and lower hours, and all the bad ones we've already fired, then that means really everybody that I look up the line here is like, are they mediocre? And he goes, now you figured out the game. I was like, wait a second. I have heard that conversation in my head like thousands of times over the last 25 years. And come to find out, when you think about the Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, when they go IPO, who do they go to get their audit opinions?
The Big Four.
The Big Four. There's so many emotions and everything that is actually in the private sector, and I don't include public accounting in the private sector. Private sector is when you're out there, you're doing payroll, you're actually down, you're in the machinery, you're making the t-shirts, you're putting the stuff on, you're putting it on a truck, you're moving it across the United States, you're in logistics, you're looking at petroleum prices, you're looking at all of it. If you've never felt that pucker moment when the oil prices go up and oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, do we pass this through to our consumer, or do we just go ahead and eat it? Or do we hedge the next 3 months of our fuel? Now it's more of a business consulting / auditing role, but I can sign off on this audit because I know that those numbers are in fact fairly represented in accordance with GAAP.
Sure. No, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned too in those roles when it just comes to like hard work. There's plenty of CFOs, I've interviewed CFOs that have told me, oh, I was a waiter, I've worked blue collar jobs, but plenty haven't, right? Plenty went through school, went to big 4-year schools that went through big complex programs and never held jobs like being a waiter, right? And stuff like that. Those types of intangibles are so valuable, I believe, when it comes to leadership, because you can do the things like be a great CFO and be a great father if you understand when to work hard, when it's okay to kind of hang it up and focus on the family and balance those two. And those types of things are learned, I believe, in the trenches of Big Four for finance and accounting. I hear that a lot from CFOs I interview that come from Big Four. That's where I learned how to develop work ethic, communicate with the leaders, all of that type of stuff. If that doesn't take place, I mean, where will those types of people, the ones who are at UPenn, Harvard, Stanford, Brown right now, studying business, that want to go into investment banking. I mean, those jobs, they're very, very hard jobs, right? And you work very hard on those jobs. But I think that in finance and accounting in particular, with the labor shortage in mind, where are those types of people going to learn how to develop some type of work ethic? They've been doing it in Big Four for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I don't know where it will come from if they're all managers.
Well, the problem is it's not going to come out of the university level because you're just dumping stuff into their heads, and then when they come out, they don't know how to apply it, right? So it's definitely not coming out of university. It's kind of akin to doing. I use this all the time where you go from a bachelor's and let's just say business, whatever, and you go straight to an MBA program, right? You have no work experience. It's like, but you get into a group environment. It's like this guy has 8 years of work experience. This girl has 10 years of work experience, and they come together. It's like, okay, you're going to do this part. You're going to do this part. You're going to do the presentation, and you're looking at it going, how do these guys know all this stuff? It's because they cut their teeth on industry.
Have you found among your students over the years that interest in learning these types of things, the fundamentals of finance and accounting? I know you don't teach people who want to be accountants, but be business owners. But as interest in these types of things gone down, are these future business owners even going, why do I have to learn this? I can either hire somebody to do this or buy technology that can do this for me. Have you heard that? Okay,
so actually you're gonna appreciate this. So I just finished up the summer quarter at SCAD, right? So I just of the 15 people that were in class, I had about 5 women that would normally show up. It's online, so a lot of people just don't show up because they're busy. Don't get me wrong, they're busy. These 5 women showed up religiously every Monday, every Wednesday, and we had some great conversations. Now, understand, when you're talking with SCAD, you were talking about creative individuals. I want to sculpt, I want to paint, I want to do video games, I want to do industrial design. They don't want to do accounting. And so I looked at it from the standpoint, it's like, how do I take this topic, again, that is so very technical, and it has so many rules and regulations, and make it so that they want to learn this piece? Because really, I look at it, and I tell them from the first day of class, when you're done here, you're either going to go work for somebody else or you can go work for yourself. It's up to you on who you want making money off of your intellectual property, right? And they're like, well, nobody's ever told us that before. It's like, because I'm going to give it to you straight. Because I know what it looks like when intellectual property is ripped from your hands and someone else is making $1 billion off of your idea and you just didn't have the funds at the time or the wherewithal to stand it up, right? And so what was interesting is at the end of this, we start off, we talk about cost, we talk about pricing, we talk about cost volume analysis, we talk about pro formas, investor presentations, budgeting, flex budgeting, all of it. Gets down to the annual shareholder meeting. And now you have to go back to your investors who gave you the money, who believed in your dream. And now you're going to tell them, hey guys, this is how we stewarded your resources. Thank you so much. These were the challenges that we had to overcome in our first year. And now looking forward, this is where we're going to go. It's funny because they all talk about ROI because they all watch Shark Tank. And they're like, oh, I got to put ROI in there. It's like, never put ROI in there. And it's like, once you put that number in writing, you get pinned to it. It's like a pin the tail on the donkey. Never put it. You can talk about it all day long. Never put it in writing. But here's what happened. So at the end, the last class that we had already done our presentation. So we had a little bit of time afterwards. And one of the girls, she asked a question. She said, hey, can I give you some feedback? And I was like, look, I'm open. I love anything you can tell me. Constructive criticism. If you want to tell me I'm an idiot, go ahead and tell me an idiot. I got big shoulders. And she said, I was scared when I first started looking into this class because the title of it is called Strategic Financial Management, right? I mean, what could be more fearsome than some three big words of something you have no idea of what you're walking into? She said, I'm so glad I took this class. I wish everybody at SCAD had to take this class. And I said, well, so let me ask you something. Is it because of the textbook? By the way, so we used my textbook. I was able to use my textbook that I finished. I said, was it because of the textbook? Was it is it professor specific? What was it that really made it resonate for you? Because I know you're a sequential artist, and in the art world, that's a comic book artist, right? So you don't really have any interest in this kind of stuff. She goes, no, but now I understand why they're so adamant, they being SCAD and the professors, why they're so adamant about people like protecting your intellectual property. I didn't know about the dollars and cents side. I didn't know about the revenues and expense side. And I was like, well, you know what? That's really cool. That's probably one of the best compliments I've ever received, that you came in with fear and trepidation of what was going to happen. And now you're leaving this class with an understanding that you may not know it all. You're not a CPA, you're not an accountant, but you at least can understand the talk. And that made me feel so amazing. So when you ask the question, what do you think your students are doing? I think the students have a genuine curiosity about the subject. I just think personally, from a professor standpoint, from an academic standpoint, we need to do a better job of conveying that information so we don't lose them during the process and then graduate a whole bunch of people out there that have no idea what they're doing in the real world. We set everybody up for failure, and now we're leaving the onus on the Big Four, which, by the way, is about to advocate this, but to basically mentor them into their roles. That cannot happen. It's got to change. So the fever is out there. They want to learn this. It's just a matter of, can we change the way we instruct it so that we hedge around them, we buffer them, we build them up, as opposed to constantly trying to weed them out. And you don't understand this. What's wrong with you? You're not smart. It's just, we do it backwards.
You know, I think you had a guest on this show, your first episode. Don't remember the guy's name, but
Boyd Search. He's the CEO of the Georgia Society of CPAs. So
Boyd Search, I believe it was Boyd, had said that he advocated for accounting to be taught at the AP level in high school. Mm-hmm. Correct? You said that on your show, and I never heard that before. And I said to myself, that's such a great idea.
Yeah.
Because it is, you know, you can take accounting 101 in high school. It's not too complicated. It's not like it's not college level stuff at all, you know, but at the same time, I think it would just allow people of all types, of all interests, who are smart, young people, to develop those types of thinking patterns, not perfectly, not chiseled, but just to approach that type of thought process. Like, okay, if I want to start a business, what's the impact of my intellectual property on my business? At 19, 20, 21, 22, That's not where you're not even having that thought, most people, right? Especially if you didn't pursue business.
See, I think I'm a little bit different on that one because I think that kids are coming out, they're seeing influencers, they're seeing how people are making money on social media, they're seeing how they can just they're making their own social media brands. I think they're all tiny little businesses in and of themselves. They just don't know, no one's guiding them into how to do it correctly. And so when they're coming through high school and they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, they're taking everything. I see it with the players all the time. A player will be like, hey, they're going to give me free protein. Like, free protein? Dude, what you just did on social media, you gave them $15,000 of marketing. Did they give you $15,000 of protein? No. Then what are you doing, dude? It's like, you need to know what your value is, right? And a lot of these kids don't. And I say kids in a warm and a term of endearment. It's but I think at the high school level, they are hungry for that kind of information. But what we used to call financial literacy was how to write a check, how to pay the gas bill, how to do all these things. It's like, it is totally different now, man. People want to start businesses at 15 and 16 years old. Let's teach them how to, hey, here's what you can do in a business. Here's what can happen in a business, but here's all the emotions in the political and the social and the economic. There's all the forces that you're going to fight in order to make this happen. It is not easy. If you make it, man, it's awesome. But if you fail, you still learn something. So now go to business school, find out what you didn't know, and supplement that and go do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again.
Sure. Yeah, I love writing about young people and Gen Z in finance and accounting.
Jay-Z too.
Jay-Z too. Some of our best performing coverage. I think it's because, CFOs don't, and our readers, but CFOs as well. We have more than CFOs who just read our stuff. But I think there's a lot of confusion because I think a lot of them have kids who are in Gen Z, right? So they see it from an outside work perspective. Mm-hmm. And then as they get older, they see those people now coming in at entry-level positions in their companies, and they're going, how do I communicate with this person at a professional level? Not like he's one of my kids' friends or anything like that. Like, how do I communicate with this person professionally? And I think that's another one of those things that they didn't teach in business school. They don't teach you at KPMG, right? And so I think that it comes down to that. Like, how can we teach and how can we communicate as business leaders, right? How can we communicate with Gen Z and young people who have much different or many, many different priorities than you and I both do? I'm born in 1994, so I'm like right on the cusp of that Gen Z. I'm like the oldest Gen Z and the youngest millennial, right?
Okay.
And so I think when I see kids who are, 5, 6, 7 years younger than I am, who I've known, who are now entering the workforce and now in like their real their first full-time job, it's interesting. Like there's certain things that they don't consider taboo, like talking about salary at work. Mm-hmm. Or, asking for an outright. Like, it's funny, when I sold cars, I was a car salesman, right? And you would always hit, if a customer came in off the lot and didn't know the price of a used car, you hit them with, 30% more than the asking price, and you start negotiating there. And Gen Z almost has that philosophy when it comes to their own salary negotiations. Like, I've seen crazy surveys where it's like a Gen Z employee interviewing for a $70,000 a year job will ask for $250 and want to negotiate it down. And I would never do that. Yeah. You would never do that. But it's like the way they think about and approach work is so much different than the way you and I do. And there's a big communication gap there. And I think that there's plenty of different ways to address it. But I don't know if there's one solution, right?
So I have an idea for you because, and this is right up your alley. I personally think that that in the context of finance and accounting, that marketing you kind of get this in there, but specifically in finance and accounting, all the electives are very finance and accounting oriented, right? You could take some fraud, you could take some internal audit, you could take some costs, you could take all these things, but you know what they don't teach in that curriculum is storytelling. It's like this is where your journalism background. Do you think if you came in and you taught a class to a whole bunch of accountants of how to write a story, how to write a character arc, how to write that lead-in description and tease them and get them down into the second paragraph and now give them the information they need and hopefully they read the rest that's underneath the fold, right? Do you think you could go in there and teach a bunch of accountants how to tell a story?
Sure, but I think there's one more process to that.
What's that?
It's making, and this is what great CFOs are great at doing. It's taking complex information and being able to tell it to somebody who doesn't necessarily speak that language. Like
Correct.
CFOs tell me I've not all, but I've heard from a lot of CFOs that some of the most challenging parts of the job are when you have to explain to, let's say, the CEO, especially a founder CEO, right?
There you go. Oh, of course.
Very passionate about the business, but has zero accounting or finance background.
Yep.
To explain to them the numbers in a way that is actionable for them, in a way that they can understand without being patronizing, right? And that's the challenge. I think a lot of CFOs, I used to hear a lot when I started 3 years ago. I don't hear this term as much anymore. Like they don't want to be the bean counter, right? They don't want to be the person in the corner saying no.
Right.
I think that's developed now to exactly what you're talking about, right? Is like the greatest CFOs that I interview say that the communication comes down to storytelling. Exactly right. So yes, but I think it's twofold. I think you have to be able to tell the story, to be able to process the information in a way where you have storytelling in mind, but then to be able to actually tell it is a whole nother part of it. It's really two separate things. In my job, like when I look at data, I spend just as much time reading the survey as I do writing the story, because I want to make sure, first of all, that I'm right. And second of all, that I'm explaining it in a way where somebody's reading it and going, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I want to be able to write it in a way that's high level, but also in a way that both a business student and a CFO can read it and go, and learn something. And it's hard to do. It takes skill, and it takes a lot of practice. I don't always get it right. I write a story every day. It's like, every day is a new day for me. I always say, my manager would kill me if he heard me say this, but I always say, I'm only as good as my last story, right? And I think, and so every day I get a new shot to do it, but it's hard. And yes, I could, but it would take me not one class. We might need an entire semester on how to do it.
But you know what? That's okay, because it's an elective and we have time. But you develop out the principles of what's a noun, what's a verb. I mean, it's very English based, but the idea is that there has to be. It didn't even have to be a journalism course. It could be a drawing course. It could be a filmmaking course. It just has to be something where there's step one is this. Step two is this. Step three is this. Are you developing this character? Are you moving the plot? What are you doing? And I know it seems like well, that's way out in left field. The problem is, or the reality is, that we do this every day with our clients. We do this every day when we're on the phone with the vendor, with a fan, with someone reading our stories. If one, we have to have good information, and once we have that good information, can we move that information into the greater conversation with people so that they can understand it and then utilize it in the way that they want to. You are correct. I call it taking the technical and moving it into tangible. I know it's very Baptist. It's very professorial, but it's absolutely true. You have to be able to take that very technical information and be able to write it so people can understand it. But also, it does nobody any good if you just hand somebody an income statement and say, here you go, there's your income statement. And what does this mean? I'm a mom and pop. I've been in business for the last 3 years to 30 years. I have no idea what you just handed me. What I do know is that tire's flat over there and that saw blade is a little rusty. I got to fix those things so I can make sure I can do my job day in and day out, right? Oh. Tell me how it relates to that, and then you and I are finally communicating the way we need to communicate. So I really think that one of the things that we could do is help students at the high school level, like even a drama course. I know it sounds weird, but teach them how all of these characters play together, and then use that and then bring it right into the business context and say, what you just did over here in Shakespeare, this is the office. How do those relate? Right? There's Michael, there's Dwight, all of these guys. Who are those people over here? Is that Montague? Is that the Capulets? Who is it, right? But the idea is that there's a story there. There's a core principle that needs to come out of this tragedy that you now bring into the business world and say, how do I tell that story? Accountants are not very good at this, but they can learn it but it takes a lot of experience and really good mentorship in order to be able to learn how to speak that way. And unfortunately, there's not enough people out there that know how to do that. And so what I would love to see is journalism schools, film schools, reach into the business schools and say, hey, come on over here. We're going to teach you one semester, one course a semester, and it's going to be something that you've never experienced before. But when you walk out of here, you're going to be able to take that income statement, that cash flow statement, that balance sheet, that pro forma, and you'll be able to tell a story to somebody that they're going to look at and go, I get it. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. Where's the call to action? I think it's possible.
I do too, but I like you said, the accountants, most accountants, you not being one of them, are very type A, right?
Hey, I've got my CPA card.
And I just think that it's almost, it would need to, it's a shift. It's a total shift of mindset. You're focused on, well, let me take a step back here. I think it's much more difficult to speak it on the fly, to tell the story verbally to a group of stakeholders in the boardroom with the income statement
True.
on the slideshow behind you, right?
I agree with that.
That is very, very challenging. That would be much more challenging than what I do, which I could sit here alone in my office and have an entire day to process data and write a story to make sure I get it right. That is much different than presenting to a boardroom. And so I think the communication there are two different things, but both can be learned, by I think anybody could, if anybody who went through an accounting program, I promise you, could step into my job and do it, truthfully, because so much of it is learning those types of fundamentals and being able to speak the language. If you could just learn how to tell a great story, and you learn by, you go to journalism school, but you mentioned it, The Office. I'm a huge reader. I'm reading The Power Broker by Robert Caro, which is an autobiography of Robert Moses right now.
There's no pictures in that book.
There are pictures. There are pictures.
It's a coloring book. I get it. Keep going.
But my point is that you can learn how to be a great storyteller through means outside of work, right?
Agreed.
And so I think if you can bring humor into explaining the income statement, just like Flowcast, the company Flowcast put together like a sitcom. It's on YouTube. It's kind of filmed like The Office. The camera work is exactly like The Office, and it's about a CPA firm, right? And so it shows the ins and outs and the quirks of working at an accounting firm. But it's things like that. Like that show talks a lot about, like, they make finance and accounting funny. They have scenes in that show that plenty of people working in jobs like you and I can watch and relate to it and go, oh, I've never thought of saying that sort of thing like that before, because it's written by writers with accountants in the room going, yeah, that sounds right. And so I think that is very valuable. So you don't have to sign up for a course at a college. If you didn't learn it in college, it's not too late. Like, anybody can, if you want to be a better communicator, just look around you, read more, listen to more podcasts, I wouldn't say watch more television, but just figure out who are the great storytellers, what stories am I interested in learning, and what to me makes a great story, and that's very, very, very subjective. That's not something that everybody agrees on. I'm sure that you and I would have differences on that as well. What makes up a great story?
So I will tell you this, from an entertainment standpoint, I was fortunate enough when I was at the California CPA societies. They had me come out and do a keynote on just to close out the session. And while there, they had a host there. His name is Drew Carrick. He is the rapping CPA, right? Look him up. He's hilarious. In fact, we're going to do some collaborations in a very Beastie Boys type fashion. Can you imagine? I think I'm going to go with the rapper named Little FIFO, or Notorious P&L. I don't know which one, but that whatever color I'm going to use, I don't know. It might be red, might be black. But he in particular, what I love about what he's bringing out there, now he is a bona fide CPA, he's passed the test, he puts CPA at the end of his name, just like all the private equity people don't want him to. What he brings to the world of accounting is that he just has fun with it. There's all these little buzzwords, all these little weird scenarios that when you're on an audit team, when you're on a tax team, when you're in an engagement, he brings them in and makes light of them, but you can tell that he knows what he's talking about, because you can't do that unless you've been in that situation, right? There's stuff in there that, like, he calls he has one called the ghost tick killer, and do you know what a ghost tick is?
No.
Okay, in the auditing world, when you're running through work documents, right? So let's say you're doing accounts receivable or cash, doesn't matter. You're doing a work paper. There's a workflow that you have. Sometimes it's done in like a Word document. A lot of times it's like a platform that does this, and you go through and you say, okay, this is a step, this is the next step, this is the next step, and you kind of run through, and it just gives you an audit program to follow, right?
Okay.
So that there's consistency to the audit approach, right? Well, a ghost tick is when it's usually a younger staff member who they know they need to get it done before the weekend. It's like I can't get it. I got to get it done. I got to put it in, and I got to just so I can go off and so I go to Coachella. I'm going away for the weekend. So I just need to get it. So what they do is they tick it off as if they've done it. Now, why is that important? It's something that you can get fired for because it's basically saying I have done something. Once you put your initials on something, you're basically saying that I have done this and it's ready for your review, senior manager up the chain, right? If you tick something and saying that you've done something and you really haven't, you actually open up the entire engagement team, the entire firm up to some legal liability because what you may not think that what you're doing is very important, but that one little step in the grand scheme of things is the linchpin that keeps cash being recorded correctly. It keeps account receivable from not being overstated. So all that said, so he comes and he has this rap called Ghost Tick Killer. And if you go listen to it with that kind of context, you look at it like, oh my gosh, this is so funny because I knew people who did that at PwC and Deloitte. They used to do it because I got to get out of here. I'll let the senior take care of it. Click, 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 and they leave. Next day, it's like, bro, you better get in here early and actually do that stuff. You're lucky they didn't review the file yet. So little things like that. He also turned me on to a really fun show. Now, I'm a big Silicon Valley guy. I love that show. I like business type shows, kind of quirky stuff, but also impart a little bit of wisdom here and there. He turned me on to a YouTube show. It actually has a lot of actors that you would recognize. It's called PBC. Now, PBC in the world of accounting is called the prepared by client list. Okay, it's what you give them to say, hey, I need these are all the supplementary schedules that I need. Here, I need a trial balance just to plan out the audit, right? If you go and look on there, in a couple of the trailers, there's several seasons. I think they just greenlighted season 3. It's very office-like, but it's specifically for accountants. And what I love about this is it's all like the way they talk, the way they hang around, the way they're treated is, I can tell you, it feels like I'm back in that in the Big Four environment. And but there's one place. I tell you this all. I tell my students this all the time. Tell people all the time. Accountants don't want to talk about accounting. It's just that we just don't want to do it because that's what we do all day long, right? There's one in the trailer. There's this one character. He goes, accountants don't want to talk about accounting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to watch this show. This is like that's what I say. But it's very similar to what you're saying. They're taking a very funny approach to a kind of a people look at accounting, they like, I don't get it. And because I don't get it, I kind of fear it. And because of that, I don't really want to hang around with accountants because I don't understand their language that they're speaking. And so we get ostracized to the back of the room again. But I think that your approach, you're saying communicating the information, communicating with panache, making sure that it is real information that they can take and they can do something with, actionable information, then yeah, I mean, I think that there's a nice future for individuals who have that skill set. And what you mentioned, which I really think is positive, is that even if you don't have that skill set, you can absolutely learn it. So, Adam, where would I go to learn something like that if I was a finance or accounting person that needed to hone that skill?
I mean, I would tell you CFO.com. But
there you go. Okay.
But I think, I would say your peers. You have leveraged networking, I think, very, very well. And I think that you would agree with me when I say that learning from those who are doing your job and not working in your organization is very, very valuable. Like
Agreed.
having somebody in your network to go, hey, I should probably know the answer to this question that I'm about to ask you. So can you give me an answer, but not think I'm dumb when I ask it, right? And if you have that person in your network, or even some type of person like that in your network, that's like so incredibly valuable to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody. I ask CFOs a lot, like, do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody you can ask that type of question to? And a lot of them say yes, but a fair amount also say no. And when I ask them that, they go, like I wish I had that person. And I think that's probably the best resource outside of CFO.com that you can learn from, right? Is from someone who does it well, like someone who wants to go, okay, like I want to be like Tim Naddy. How do I do it? What's step one? They should message you on LinkedIn. And I don't want your DMs to blow up, but it's like I think that's the best approach. It's like learning from peers, and that's why going back to how we started this conversation, like that's what makes us at CFO.com so different. It's like I'm just the vessel. I'm bringing the insight directly from the CFO's mouth to the reader's eyeballs, and I think that is where the value lies. If you can get firsthand insight, not a survey written up by a reporter that's aggregated in another outlet. Like you want the least amount of hands on the advice that you could have possible would be my recommendation. And that goes for anything in life, right? If you can get advice direct from the source, direct from the expert, it's the best type.
I agree. I agree. So when you are out there doing what you do and from a journalistic perspective, by the way, do you get media creds? Do you get to go behind the scenes?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
So you get to go hang out in the green rooms with the bands and stuff. I mean, the accounting bands, of course, right? Do you ever use your media creds to get in places where you're not supposed to be?
I had a great, before I worked at CFO.com, I covered cryptocurrency for an outlet called Debanked. They're small. They cover really business lending. They have the largest trade show for the small business lending community.
Okay.
They have a small publication that I wrote for. And so we started covering cryptocurrency in 2020, 2021 at the height.
Wow.
So I got sent to Miami for the day, flew out in the morning, came back to New York in the afternoon. And my press room was the Miami Heat visitors locker room.
What?
So when I got there, the event was like, all right, so your media team, your company will be in the locker room. I was the media team. I am the company. It's just me. And so I got to hang out for the whole day. Like my little, where I kept my laptop, where my phone was charging was like, in Dwayne Wade's locker.
Does he know this? Does he know this? Did you sign the wall? Adam was here.
No, but there's plays on the wall.
Did you steal his sock?
No, it was a visitor's locker room, so I don't know who was in there the night before. But yeah, there are plenty of cool experiences. Like I would say the coolest one I've ever had. I interviewed Francis Ford Coppola. I got to sit down and meet with him in New York City. Actually, the week before you and I had met in New York City last time, I was in New York City interviewing Coppola. That was so cool because, we talked a lot about we talked about financial risk, but he's like, doesn't matter about the money, but he spoke a lot about storytelling to me too, which is very, very cool because we were just talking about that. But I think it's the insight that I get from people, which is so valuable. Somebody like Coppola telling me that, I think he said that society is promoting people to not be intelligent, and that people nowadays need to read more and be more aware, and kind of like what you're saying, develop a skill set of fundamentals in order to go out and execute your dreams and goals. So many people just want to have it, but they don't know how to get it. And I think that type of insight and being articulated by people with experience like you, like Francis Ford Coppola, those are the types of things that I love. And those are the types of things from a journalistic sense that, check the box for me, so to speak. Yeah.
So do you think, I'm always interested in when kids ask me what should I do, right? Like I'm going into school. What do you think I should do? Now, my first response is I would like you to go get a bachelor's in accounting degree because I think that's a ubiquitous degree. It can be you'll always have a job. It's something that you can always fall back on, right? And then if you want to do a master's degree, go get a master's degree in something you're very passionate about. I'm curious. So at CFO.com, and I know that you guys are a team of 4, but if there was an accountant or a finance person out there that wanted to get into the real storytelling, like they really like this stuff, what would you encourage them to do? It would be more social media, some more video type stuff, TikTok type stuff, or is it something where get a website, go get on one of these writing websites and start building out their persona, if you will? How do you think that they could make the transition from the technical to the tangible so that they're actually an asset to the community as opposed to just being someone who's just, I look over there and I wish I was one of those individuals.
You know, you mentioned something about social media. I think that when we talk about this topic, social media is super important because I'm going to use a Gen Z term here. There's plenty of people.
I may not know what you're talking about.
Gen Zers call, there's a great X account called LinkedIn Lunatics, which you have to follow.
Okay.
But, they're Gen Zers, they call them cringe merchants. This is what I see a lot of on LinkedIn, right? Is like, you don't want to be the type of person on LinkedIn that is oversharing and constantly on someone's feed and almost without authenticity, without righteousness. If you want to develop a social media campaign, we're going to go, I'm going to get on LinkedIn, I'm going to get on TikTok, I'm going to get on X, and I'm going to communicate the heck out of myself and then get responses and then do it that way. That's a solid approach, right? But I think that you're walking a fine line between losing some of your potential audience by overkilling them with content. I see it a lot on LinkedIn. I see CFOs who are posting like just things that shouldn't be on LinkedIn, and especially the comments. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you treat LinkedIn like Facebook and you comment on something, people that follow you, like me, will see that comment just because you didn't post it. And so I know a lot of times I know where CFOs stand morally, politically, their ideologies, just by watching their social media, just by going on their LinkedIn and seeing, what are you commenting on? What are you liking? So less about what they're actually posting and more what they're doing. And I do that a lot. Maybe a little inside baseball there, but that's kind of how I evaluate CFOs when I'm interviewing them sometimes. It's like, what is your social media presence? Are you a cringe merchant? Are you one of these CFOs that are oversharing to the point where, you could tell, and it's like essays in the body of the post. It's very boomer-esque, if I have to be ageist here, right? Yeah. You don't want to be that. So I think there's a fine line to walk there. Communication-wise, we talked about learning with your peers. I think that's huge. Networking is huge. And then it's tough because I deal with a lot of public relations people, and they pitch me on stories. They represent their clients, and I would tell CFOs, talk to some of these people. But at the same time, there's a lot of fluff there that I see when I'm pitched. And I've worked a little bit on the PR end of things. And I would just, when you're working with a PR team to build yourself a media presence, a lot of CFOs I speak to, they'll hire a PR firm to like build a presence for them, or they'll pick an executive. They'll go, we have a great CMO. We want to make them the face of the company. Let's bring a PR team to do that, right? The advice you're getting from them are 23, 24, 25-year-olds with the communication degrees right out of college. They don't really have the work experience. Their job is sending me emails that I may or may not respond to.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at those people, I think that there's a lot of bad advice out there, is my point, when it comes to doing this type of thing. And I think that it's very difficult to develop a good communication presence as a CFO, especially because you have to walk the line of representing the brand and also being yourself, which I think you do a great job of, but it's also very easy for you. The Savannah Bananas are a fun brand. If you were Philip Morris, if you were selling cigarettes, it might be a little bit different to host the business Biceps and BS show, right? And
that's fair. That's fair.
And so I think that there's some context that plays into that when it comes to building that brand. But I think you have to be aware of how your audience, what audience are you looking to attract? That's what we always talk about. Is at CFO.com is really step one when we evaluate whether or not we should cover something is not what the story is. It's who is the intended audience for this story. I mean, most of the time it's CFOs, but I think when you're talking about building a brand and building a communication presence, you have to define who your audience is before who you are. Because if you focus all on you and what you want to say and not who's hearing it, it could go misguided.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's very wise information from someone outside the industry who's basically peeking in on everybody inside, saying, "Hey guys, here's a little bit, like you said, inside baseball." Real quick, I got a question for you. Don't you have something significant coming up? or just happened?
Well, I have two very significant events, one past, one future.
All right.
I got married on the 4th of July.
Congratulations.
I'm-
Wait, that's supposed to be Independence Day. What are you doing?
My wife now has always wanted a Friday night 4th of July wedding, so we were engaged for 2 years, and I waited for that day to get married. It was phenomenal. And
Congratulations.
I'm also expecting my first child.
Oh my
In
goodness.
December, I have a son coming. My wife is due, I think I should probably know this on the spot, December 9th, December 8th.
Okay.
One of those days. So we're almost there. So my life has been, for the past few months, managing just trying to map out my life to be. I'm sure your life before kids and your life after
Awesome,
kids.
man.
It's a totally, I know it's a big change, right? That's what everyone
Yeah.
tells me. And you have kids, so I'm kind of just trying to draw out the map. I know that I'm kind of at, a point where if I could do as much planning as I can now, I
Sure.
could set myself up for a really good future, I hope. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to really put the pieces together in hopes of building something great.
Well, congratulations to you, Adam Zaki of CFO.com. Personally, my favorite journalist out there, and soon to be yours too. So, hey, listen, thank you so much for taking some time to be on Business Biceps and BS. If you ever need anything, you let me know. I've got the whole GS CPA over here that's waiting to be interviewed by you. So next time you're down in Atlanta, come on over to the offices. We'll introduce you to the folks. And if you just want to do like the real pop-up interviews, we'll nail those too. So thank you very much. Good luck to you and your wife, and I'm sure, and your new little one. I'm super excited for you, man.
Thank you. And be sure to stick a door in the back door of Yankee Stadium so I could sneak in there.
You got it, brother.
All right. And have a
I'll
great
talk to you soon.
afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Bye, buddy.